Welcome to This Just In with This Just In as your host, Justin Corr. This is a show where we take a deeper dive into the stories and the issues most important to you with the people who bring you those stories. And today, a first-time correspondent is local sports legend Tom Scott. Tom.
Thank you, Justin. Did you come up with this all by yourself? This, just in correspondent.
The correspondent, no, that was my friend Mike. Thank you, Mike. The This Just In, yes, absolutely.
That's pretty good.
We started with the name, as I always say, and then just built the show from there.
That's good. I'm impressed.
That's the first hurdle. We got over it. And here we are. Tom, thanks for joining us. How you doing?
Hey, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
So we're going to chat about how local sports news and Bronco sports have changed in the past few decades. We may have seen some change there
a little maybe.
in the past few decades. But first, let's talk about you. You grew up in the Bay Area. How was that?
It was a great time to grow up down there because, as you can tell, it was a long, long time.
No.
But,
what are you, 27? You look great.
Yeah, 27. So that back then, it was a great place to grow up and cut my teeth on sports fandom. But I moved to Boise when I was a junior in high school, and I've loved it here and never left.
You fell in love with sports broadcasting down in the Bay Area. How? Who were you listening to down there?
Well, it was mainly, the announcing part. When I was a kid, I'd go to Giants games, and they had a public address announcer named Jeff Carter. And so I was fascinated by it. He was the guy who got to tell everybody that Willie Mays was at bat. Batter number 24, Willie Mays. And it wasn't hype like it is now on PA. But I thought, what a cool job to be able to do that. So it was a combination of that and then music. I loved music, and there was a station, KFRC, in San Francisco down there that I just idolized too. So combination of sport. The sports side was public address announcing, and the radio side or announcing side, on-air side was actually Top 40 radio that got me into it.
Oh, wow. Fantastic. So how'd you find your way to the Treasure Valley?
Well, my dad was at Safeway in Oakland at the general offices there. And then when Albertson started their first big expansion, they headhunted him, and they picked up the family and moved lock, stock, and barrel to Boise, Idaho. And I found out my first week at Boise High that it wasn't Boise. It was Boise.
It's like, it's not Boise. No. Where am I then?
Yeah. How do you like it here? Oh, I really like Boise.
Like, nope.
Nails on a chalkboard. So I corrected that in a hurry.
Wow, Boise High back then. That was probably one of the few high schools in the
valley.
Well,
there was Boise Boring Capital, and Bishop Kelly existed at the time.
Oh, okay.
But there were far fewer high schools, so the rivalries were pretty severe. And on Veterans Day every year, they would play a game in Old Bronco Stadium. It was a tradition, the Veterans Day Classic or whatever they called it, and it was between two of the city schools. There would be 10,000 people there. There was just a tremendous halftime show. Bands, they had drill teams back then. The drill teams were incredible. I had never seen that coming from California, but the drill teams, there were, 50 girls on the drill team, and they were fantastic.
Wow, amazing. Boise back in the day. What was your first job in the business up here?
Well, I hung out at radio stations, and the one because I was trying to tell them what music to play, because I thought that.
Are you serious?
I thought that
really.
Yes, I thought that every song that they played in San Francisco should be played in Boise. But that's the way I felt at the time. So I'd hang out and I'd contact them, and the one that listened to me was KFXD, and. Funny story.
So they just stopped taking your calls. So you're like, I'm just going to show up.
Right. Yeah. Well, yeah. And that I did kind of go underground when I was a senior in high school. And I had Boise Students for Better Stations, BSBS. And so that was an underground group. And
Tom, you're more of a legend than I realized. Good for you.
I sent the radio stations my own top 30 survey, that I created, as in, this is what you should be playing. And then I signed like 20 classmates' names my classmates at Boise High,
Wow.
their names, but I didn't sign my name. So one night,
So somebody else could get in trouble.
exactly. So one night, KFXD, this guy from KFXD named Dave Combs was calling around trying to get to the bottom of this, and I got a call, and he said, "Do you know anything about Boise Students for Better Station?" I go, "Oh no, no, I've never heard of it." Well, I've talked to some of the people on this list, and they said that they don't know anything about it, but the only person that they know that would do something like that was you. And so, well, okay, well, if you hear anything, give me a call. And so this gal named Jan Goodmanson was one of the people on the list. And I went, oh, man. So I called Jan, and her line was busy.
Oh, no.
And so, oh, no.
She's on the phone with the FBI.
Exactly. And she calls 5 minutes later and says, hey, Dave Combs just called me and was asking me about this Boise Students for Better Station. I go, what did you tell him?
Yeah.
He said, well, I told him that I didn't know anything about it, but the only person I knew that would do anything like that was you. And so I thought, busted.
Stop. Dang it, snitches.
Oh, I know. And so I called Dave Combs back, and they said, we just want to talk to you. We want you to come in. And so I went in there, and I actually was doing KFXD's music survey for about 3 months before I actually had a job there. And then my first job
They brought you in and they gave you a job.
I was the music director, unpaid. And then I got my first job, midnight to 2. They created a midnight to 2 show for me. Then I went down to Arizona State for 1 semester, came back, and was full-time at KFXD for about 9 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So, I mean, just not even getting your foot in the door, just like pushing the door open.
Kind of. Yeah. And I could never, and the blessing was that I was in Boise, and I could never have done that in the Bay Area. You know, I never would have had that chance. So,
the stations are too big,
it was a
right?
blessing to be in Boise.
Yeah. Well, and that's really cool as well, because it's like y'all didn't have Spotify back then. So it's like you waited for your favorite songs to come on the radio. And if they weren't coming on, it's like, what are we doing here?
Radio was it. And we had a 26 share in 1973, the highest share in Idaho radio history.
Well, explain to people what that means.
That means that 26% of all people listening to the radio at any given time were listening to our station.
That's huge. Because there were even ton of radio stations still back then.
There were a lot for that time. So that was an amazing number. But that was just part of people's lives. And I love being part of people's lives. That was part of my joy of being in broadcasting.
Well, speaking of which, you became part of people's lives by being the PA announcer.
Yeah.
Just like you heard at those Giants games for Bronco football and Bronco hoops in the 70s, some of the 80s. You were there for some classics.
Yeah.
What stands out?
I would say two things stand out. One was one announcement that I made. It was in 1977, last game of the season, beautiful sunny November day. There was no band at that time at Boise State. So it was totally quiet. And so Jim Poor was a legendary sports writer for the Statesman. He was about 300 pounds, 6'3", 300 pounds, teddy bear of a guy, funny writer. And so he was down standing next to the goalpost waiting to do his post-game interviews. And his timeout, everything's silent. So I say, now your attention please, Jim Poor. Please do not lean against the goalpost. You're tilting the field. And so there's this, 2-second pause while everybody looks down, and then this roar goes up. And then he switches to the other side of the goalpost as if he's tilting it back. And so... that was the moment. And then the game, my favorite game was Grambling. In 1980, Boise State played Grambling in the Division I AA playoffs. It was the semifinals in Bronco Stadium. It was a cold day. Anyone who was there will tell you it was below zero, but it wasn't. It was 25 degrees, but there was fog and hoarfrost everywhere. Yeah. And so Grambling was not accustomed to that, and they didn't like that at all. Yeah. So they were
Grambling. If you don't know, back then a powerhouse 1AA squad
with legendary Eddie Robinson as head coach, and so as the game went on, Boise State was a heavy underdog, and as the game went on, they're still hanging in there, and and it was 7-7 at the end of the third quarter.
Whoa!
So. everyone, when the third quarter ended, there was this, we got a chance. We can do this in the stadium. And then the second play of the fourth quarter, Boise State pulls out a flea flicker, and Joe Aliotti hits Kip Bedard for a 63-yard touchdown. And the place goes crazy. And I may as well have not even turned on the mic for the rest of the game. Nobody could hear me. It was just a din of sound. So,
wow. And how big was the stadium?
It was at that time it was 20,000, and there were 17,000 there. They had to resell the stadium from scratch, so that's hard to do.
But still pretty good turnout again.
Oh yeah,
you don't know going through the playoffs if you're even going to have a game, next week. So you got to sell it from scratch.
It's like the Mountain West Championship game now. You have to sell it from scratch. So in years past, that's why it didn't fill up.
But 17,000, if they're going crazy like that, unbelievable.
And I will say that was the loudest crowd in that stadium for the next 20 years. It was so loud. Stadium was expanded, but they didn't hit that kind of noise, I think, until maybe the 1999 Humanitarian Bowl, first bowl game. So
I was at that game.
Noise, the noise was incredible.
So I have a PA story as well. Like I was, just trying to break in to the business, and I was actually a student at Boise State shooting for Boise State, and I went to, it was either hoops or gymnastics. So it would have been later on, maybe in the 90s, and you were doing the PA, and
for gymnastics.
It must have been.
Yeah.
And I'm shooting video for the team, and I hear you, hey, it's Tom Scott. I learn it's you, and I see all the Tom Scott Motors advertisements and sponsorships, and they're letting this guy just do the PA just because he runs the car dealership that pays the bills around here. I'm just a kid trying to get into the business. Guess I got to go sell cars. Yeah. And then you had an announcement for an ad for Tom Scott, and at the end you said no relation, and I'm like, oh,
I'm glad I said that.
He's not that Tom Scott. So
I still get that today.
Really?
And it's no big deal. I just I explain it. And are you this got the car dealership in Nampa? No, I'm not that guy.
It's like no. You might take his paycheck though.
Right. I'd love to trade places. Yeah.
More on Broncos in a second. First, how did you find yourself then at KTVB?
Well, let's see. I was sports director at KIVI and KBOI TV.
Boo. I'm just kidding. It's fine. It's fine.
They were good people. So for about 5 years, and then I segued over to advertising, and I was at what is now Sparklight when they launched local cable advertising, which was a big cutting-edge thing at the time. And then after about a year there, they hired me here in the sales department. But that was 1986. But since I had this sports background, and while you're here, do you want to do the color on the games, and do you want to do the co-host the coaches show? And so yeah, sure. So I did the games with Mark Johnson before he went to Milwaukee, and then with Larry Maneely, and did the coaches shows. And so I burned the candle at both ends, but that's kind of set the table for everything that's happened since.
Wow, fantastic. And you worked with Mark Johnson back in the day, the Miracle on Ice hockey player. What was he like?
Oh, he was especially great, when he crossed the blue line. No.
Different Mark Johnson, I guess. Yeah.
But no, he was, you know how funny he is. And when he was doing sports, he was funnier. And then I would say before he went to Milwaukee, he was more unhinged. And so when he came back from Milwaukee and Pittsburgh, he was a lot more professional. But he was just a gas to work with.
Been a part of a lot of, Sunday Sports Extra since it started almost 30 years ago. Did you think that thing would stick around?
Yeah, I thought it would, but I didn't think I'd be a part of it for that long because at the end of 1999, I left the station to form my ad agency. Mm-hmm. And in my exit interview with Doug Armstrong, he said, well, what about Sports Extra? And I said, well, I guess I'm off the show. And he said, no, you can keep doing it if you want. So here I am, 25 years later.
25, yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks, Doug.
I know.
Appreciate it. How is news, and this is, I mean, it might take us hours to answer this, but we don't have that much time. But how has news and broadcasting in the market changed since you started back in the 70s?
Well, we kind of touched on it with the radio thing, and so the same was the case for TV. And TV in the 70s, you had the local stations. You had 3 network affiliates and PBS, and we didn't even have an independent station until like 82. So everybody watched those stations, and everybody listened to the radio, and that's where you got your music, that's where you got your news, that's where you got your sports, and now it's so fragmented. And so I know that, with KTVB, it's just a fight to maintain everything that they've had, but you're not shy about making those efforts. And I compliment you for that.
Oh, well, I mean, I'm only a small part of it, but this just in with Justin, a great guest like Tom Scott, certainly part of that. I mean, KTVB Plus wasn't even a thing a year ago, so it's just
that's the future right there.
It's just trying to be where everybody already is. What's though stayed the same, you think?
In broadcasting, well, I think
just in this area,
I think people are missing the magic of broadcasting if they don't watch and they don't listen, because like you on the morning show you're part of the community fabric. You're part of people's lives as they get up and they get ready for their day, and you and Maggie and then the same is the case with radio, with morning shows like Joey and Lauren. That's part of people's lives. And people who just listen to Spotify or have a playlist or satellite radio, they miss that local touch.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's it. It's key to kind of have that local connection, because I'm not AI. I'm an actual person. I grew up here. I live here. I see you all at the store. Never shy about taking photos with you if you want that, or if you just want me to move so you can get to your cereal, that's fine too. So you are a Boise State athletics really historian. You literally wrote the first Boise State record book. Is that right? Talk to me about that.
That is correct. I went to Boise State, then I became program director at the radio station, so I ran out of time to go to school. And the communication department kept bugging me about coming back and getting my degree because I was 10 units short. So
that's it.
We figured out a way for me to do that. I would get 6 units by writing the Boise State record book, and 4 units, or maybe it was the opposite, but the other units were teaching comm lab classes for a semester. And so I spent the whole semester writing the Boise State football record book because they didn't really have one. And so I've got a lot of what I have retained is because I researched it back then and I remembered. So like Cedric Minner's rushing record. I mean, I had that number on my brain forever. I knew that it was 4,475 yards. And when Nash and Genty late in the season actually had a chance to break it, which was unbelievable. Then, well, I knew what the record was, and I knew how far away he was, and I knew what he had to average to get there. So,
well, speaking of which, actually, we'll just go right to that. So, I mean, you saw Bronco athletics, Bronco football back in the 70s, and you see what it is now, that you have a player like just missing out on the Heisman Trophy and going to be drafted maybe in the first 10, 15 in the NFL draft, and like they're in national playoffs now on the FBS level. And you look at Bronco hoops, hopefully, expectedly headed back to March Madness. Do you think that they would be where they are now when you saw them like back in the 70s?
Absolutely not. I mean, it's been unbelievable. I mean, what a ride. And when they went to the FBS in 1996. Playing Fresno State was a big deal, And playing Arizona State was a big deal, and they got smacked.
And
by
just
both
getting
of those
throttled
schools.
was like, what an honor to get our butts kicked.
And they were 2-10, but there were extenuating circumstances. Pokey Allen being away due to cancer, and so then once Dirk Cutter took over, he changed the whole mindset of the program. And those 3 years were incredible. His 3 years, 98, 99, and 2000. Yeah. And then he started the run.
Yes.
And, you go back to his first season, Boise State has not had a losing season since. 27 straight winning seasons. And
I think you talked about it. We talked about Cutter and really how big he's been to that football program when you were on Viewpoint with me back in December, that it's like he sort of had an attitude that it's like, if we're going to be a football town, let's be a football town. Also, if we're going to be a major football team, let's do that, and good enough is not good enough, all right? Mm-hmm. Like 2-10 or having a winning record, that's fine, but it's not good enough. We have our eyes on bigger things, and he really started that, I think you talked about it, again, in Viewpoint, sort of the chip on the shoulder attitude, that it's like nobody's giving us respect here.
Yeah, and then they won the first 2 bowl games, and then Hawk took over, Dan Hawkins, and he was the guy who said, we can be a top 25 program. And everyone went, psh, well, he got him in the top 10.
Yeah.
And then Coach Pete comes in, first year. We all know what happened the first year.
FBS Bowl, won that, only undefeated team in the FBS.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he's one of the greatest coaches in college football history. Yeah. It's indisputable.
And then to hear him sort of bring it to today, hear him glowingly talk about Coach Danielson and saying, like, Coach Danielson's 101. Like he is a different guy. So, but Coach Danielson has now a college football team and a college football world that's totally different from anything we've ever seen with NIL. The ability to actually pay players, and you can say it's only for name, image, and likeness. That's not necessarily the case anymore. It's essentially like, hey, come here, we'll pay you a salary that's not a salary. This is what it is. I mean, how has that changed college sports overall, but especially, your revenue sports like football?
Well, it has been, it's changed it for the worse, for sure. And so. The combination of that and the transfer portal. But that's the hand they've been dealt, so they have to live with that. And it hasn't taken away from the popularity of college football.
No.
I mean, this past season was, Boise State aside, this past season was really something with the 12-team college football playoff.
Yeah.
It kept interest high all the way through December.
Yeah.
But NIL, at Boise State, it still is kind of the way it was intended to be.
Yeah.
For example, Tyson Degenhart with the Degenhart dozen at Pastry Professor.
Right, yeah.
That's the way it's supposed to work. We have a local star who is representing a local business and having fun and doing some commercials and autograph signings and things like that. At the major schools where they just hand them money and expecting nothing in return, that's not what was intended, but that's what's happening now.
Yeah. Gosh, that being said, on some level, it's a college football, a billion-dollar industry. On some level, these players who are putting their bodies and their long-term health on the line had to see a chunk of that, though, right? I mean, that's only fair that they're getting a piece of that pie.
Oh yeah, it's fair. It's fair. It just got out of hand immediately. Yeah. I mean, like within a week, in July of 2021, when it became legal, they found every loophole in the world, the SEC, et cetera.
Do we need to just drop the pretense and just have player contracts so that, like, you had a UNLV's quarterback who was promised certain things, played 3 games for him, and is like, hey, all this stuff you promised me, you're not getting me, except maybe 10% of it, so I'm leaving. Use that transfer portal.
Right.
Do we just need to drop all that? So it's like, hey, these are employees. Let's drop the pretense. They're employees, so they need employee contracts so that they can count on a certain amount of compensation and that the school can count on them to play for a certain amount of time.
I think that's where we're headed.
Yeah.
It's already revenue sharing is coming.
Right.
Boise State is prepared for it through their Bronco Pro initiative to pay players. So they're ready for it. They've done a lot of groundwork in that area.
Yeah. If you've been around for, again, the 70s, not to date you. You're still a very young man, Tom. I got to get your skincare routine. But if you had to make a Boise State Mount Rushmore, all sports, even administration.
And you sent me that.
Who would it be? I sent it to you ahead of time.
Okay,
brother.
Gosh, you did send it to me ahead of time.
So let's talk about it.
Okay.
We'll work through this together. Is Ashton Jeanty maybe the best Boise State player ever? Is he on there?
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah,
definitely.
You have
Yeah,
Kellen Moore, winningest quarterback of all time.
Yeah, those
Okay.
two. And then, Tyson Degenhart's got to be in the conversation if you're talking about athletes.
Right,
On,
yeah,
on the Mount
absolutely.
Rushmore. And then administratively, Lyle Smith got to be up there.
Thank you. For me, we had a tournament one time, like the most influential Bronco sports figure, and I'm like, it's got to be Lyle Smith. He won the national title there. They named the field after him for a reason, and yeah, sort of set that groundwork. Looking back today at those accomplishments, it's like, it's a 1AA national title, but it's
But
like
he had the vision.
Yeah.
In the 70s, he was athletic director, and that's when everything exploded. That's when things really kicked off.
Yeah.
So you have him, Coach Pete.
So is it Lyle Smith, Coach Pete, Kellen Moore, Jeanty? But then that's only football players, and I know that's huge, but it feels like
There's a big Mount Rushmore.
add a few more guys,
Yeah.
a few more heads on top, below, besides maybe. Is there a player, or coach, or figure sort of from Bronco past that you think people don't talk about enough? Is it like a Nick Aliotti or someone like that people don't give enough credit to?
I think it would be Lyle Smith because they're in this generation. Too many people don't know about him.
Right.
He died in 2017.
Yeah.
At the age of 101. He was sharp until the
Yes.
end. He attended practices until the end, and the team always celebrated him. But now
Yes.
that he's gone, I think his memory has faded, and people need to know about him and the junior college days, his
Yes.
athletic director days, everything that he did for the school.
And I remember he was at that Fiesta Bowl.
Yes.
And they made sure to get a few shots of him, like right after the win, giving him credit for setting that foundation because even, Fox Sports knew at that time, like, this is where it all started.
I was so glad they did that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was so awesome. Really giving him props. I saw him show up to a few practices as well, and he was older, but still looking pretty good. Not as good as you, but still pretty good. And yeah, the coaches even were like, gave him such reverence.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they knew as well.
Yeah.
Tom, awesome. So we asked for questions and comments at this time. I got one recently from Jim and Linda in Meridian who said the guest should interview me. So, Tom, do you have any questions for me? I'm just kidding. We're out of time.
Boy, that's a good thing.
But, Tom, thank you for showing up. Really appreciate it. You're the first guest that we've had on with our brand new This Just In mugs.
Those are nice.
Can't really get
But
a shot of it.
they're
Please
empty-
don't
they're
use
empty,
them. I'm
but,
sure they're
yeah.
filled with lead. They are
Right.
only props.
Yeah.
They are only props. There's nothing in them as well. How can people catch your stuff if they want to see your Scott Slant or whatever?
Well, Scott Slant daily, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. It is a This Day in Sports feature on ktvb.com. And then on Wednesdays, it's a full column. I used to do it 5 days a week. I've kind of balanced that out now.
All right. And to text us any comments or questions, 208-321-5614, #Justin.